Hey guys, we're going live a little bit early. I plan to run this live video until my son wakes up, or until we run out of things to talk about, which in our current political climate and with some things currently on the market, I think that might be unlikely. Specifically, I want to talk about the Keltec P17. I want to talk about magazines that we just brought up in my last YouTube video, if you haven't had the chance to see that yet. And let's see, we've got other things to talk about. Just a second here. We've got some shootings, we've got a myriad of things. I am wearing this new boonie. I'm so ready for fall to be here where I can actually wear the clothes that I like and to be done with my current job, which will allow me to do a lot more adventuring and a lot more videos. What's up, head crab? So, and on that topic, if you're a longtime subscriber, you'll probably notice that I haven't really had an adventure in like 2 years. And, so I guess it's been 1 year, just over a year since July 19th of 18, whatever. Just over a year. Breaking my ankle is a really big deal, and as it's healed up and I wanted to start adventuring, it's hot as nuts, and I'm working a seasonal job, and that will be over shortly. So soon we'll get back to the regular adventures and regularly scheduled content. The other thing that you'll notice is, like, my last 5 videos have been gun-based, and we're going to talk about guns today a bit, but we'll talk about knives too, especially if that's what you guys want to talk about, of course. But the market climate right now is so incredible for guns, specifically AR-15s, that you just can't help but right now is the time to get stuff. I've been saying that in videos over and over and over again, but it is the time. I remember, as many of my subscribers do. By the way, tell me how the sound quality is on here. I want to make sure that's all good. I remember spending 30 plus bucks on a mag for the AR and going to gun shows, and they were selling old GI mags for, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks. I guess you can get these sometimes for $2 to $3 now. But MFP just said buy now before the election season gets here and the panic begins. That does happen. It happens every year. We can all pretty much assume that Trump's going to win again, and which should cause more buying panic, but most likely won't until about the first year of his second term. But it'll still happen to some degree, just not as bad as it did before this election, or the election before that, or the election before that. So let's talk about magazines real quick. Like I was saying, it used to be $30 plus for these mags. Now, I mentioned not to buy these, all beat to crap, and a couple of my friends and people who are very smart people talked about buying them for $2 to $3 each and upgrading them. You can put a Magpul anti-tilt follower into them, and on Brownells they have magazine springs, a 10-pack I think for $15, and that's awesome. It's definitely worth refinishing these if you have these. I personally, outside of an investment though, would still not buy them, because you can have so many issues that really are not fixable due to feed lip geometry. So if you buy one of these mags for $3, you put a $1 spring in it, you're up to $4. $1.50 spring, $4.50, and then you put about a $2 magazine follower into it, you're up to $6.50. But for $11, you can buy a Magpul M2 magazine, second gen magazine like this one, and even less with coupon codes if you buy a few, with free shipping, and you know what you've got brand new. And these Magpul mags are really, really good. So good, in fact, that with the new M3, the Marine Corps adopted them as their official magazine. That's a pretty big deal for a polymer mag to have become primary issue. It says a lot. So now I might consider buying 100 of these for $2 a pop and putting them in a box in the house. That could certainly be a good idea. And you can make them run. So let's say some kind of end of the world situation. I take these magazines, I find the ones with the best followers and the best springs, and I clean the crap out of them. Get them just as clean as they can be, run them in a clean gun. They'll probably work. Find ones with good lips. They'll probably work pretty decent. I used these in Afghanistan, and a lot of dudes did, and a lot of dudes had great results with it. But me and a lot of others did not. So you, right now, can most likely afford good magazines. Even if you have 1,000 of those mags, at least keep 7 combat loadout premium mags. Now, I've been talking about this Magpul here. There's another contender. I don't know if you guys are familiar. By the way, this is the budget AR build and the SIG Romeo 5 scope. But the other mag that we're going to talk about here is the Lancer. These new doggone L5 mags. You'll notice, you know, the P mag all the way around is polymer. The Lancer has this metal insert for the magazine catch, the feed lips, and around the back. Because when these Magpul mags fail from abuse, traditionally it's splitting down the back here. So these right now have a reputation as the toughest mags on the market, whereas as far as I can tell, the Magpul M3 mags have a reputation for the most reliable. I would say reliability between the most reliable M3 and these Lancers is probably really, really close. But right now, when I was on deployment, I bought one of these for my dad, as well as I think a Tapco down, or a Tapco mag and a P mag, first gen. This is 2009, 2010. And I'm pretty sure they were all between $20 and $30 with, I remember the Lancer being the most expensive. It could have been $35. Right now, at brownells.com, the Lancer is on sale and the new M3 is on sale, and they're both about $13. And so the reason that I'm harping on not buying these for use right now is because for $13, getting the most modern PMag or Lancer mag, you're getting more for your money, even though you're getting much less, much fewer magazines. Okay, so we'll get off the mags for now. And if you guys have any questions on this, let me know. I only have 40 rounds through it right now, which is meaningless. 40 rounds through a firearm is absolutely meaningless. But I've got a lot of ammo that I plan on shooting throughout the next week and next weekend with a good friend down in Murfreesboro. And I do plan this fall on going to Fighting Rifle at Tactical Response, where we'll be putting about 1,500 rounds through this cheap build, which probably total cost minus the optic and rear sight with a DPMS 2-stage trigger, probably looking at about $400, which again is untouchable. So yes, if you have noticed my channel, I've been talking more about gun stuff. I always intended to talk more about guns from the very beginning of this channel. but I enjoy talking about knives. That is mostly what I talk about. It is mostly what I'll continue to talk about. I'm on a gun kick, but I do believe that I will continue to be doing more gun stuff on this channel, because it is what it is. So let's see here, Adventure Craft update. If you guys don't know, I've got my own knife company, Exodus Knife and Tool. This is the first model released, the Adventure Craft. This is a tiny, tiny little knife. And the current batch that is available for pre-sale right now is at the Laser Engravers. Should be out of there by next week, and then they'll go out to Grizzly Outdoors for Kydex. We also have a special run with NC Custom Leather. Make sure to check them out if you're on Instagram. It's just NC Custom Leather. I'm 90% sure. Aaron Seinbrandt, great guy. He'll have some special edition knives for himself. 5 of them, all black, will be available. So I said I wanted to talk about the Keltec P17. I'm surprised that we're already 11 minutes into this video. It feels like I just started. But if you're not familiar, the Keltec P17, I believe, is 14 ounces for a micro pistol, semi-automatic. It holds 16 plus 1 rounds of 22 long rifle. It was just released today. And so I'm guessing that the weight with ammo is going to be what? Probably a pound, 16 ounces. And that's exciting because my firearms collection is always evolving. But right now, my lightweight 22 is the Smith & Wesson's 317 kit gun, but I shoot semi-autos better. I just do. I like them better. And if you can have a 17 round capacity pistol at almost the same, at a very similar weight and size as an 8 round revolver, that's a no-brainer if it's reliable. Added benefit, it comes with 3 mags, and MSRP is $200. So for a little while they'll probably sell for $200, but in the long run, hopefully they'll end up floating around at between $150 and $175. And that's just cheap. And if it's ugly, it's ugly, it's ugly. But if they run, it's a pretty good deal. Let's see here, guys. I think I got more crap going on. But if you do follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I have another Bear Creek Arsenal upper and DPMS lower parts kit, Brownell's buffer tube assembly. I'm doing videos about arming the people that you care about. I take it seriously, so I do have friends and family starting to buy parts, and I'm going to be putting together some rifles for them for free and running some classes. At first, I'm going to be running very basic classes and basic marksmanship, like what I learned in the military essentially, and get a little bit into that. But once I go to that fighting rifle class at Tactical Response, then I'll do some a little bit more advanced stuff with the people I care about. Which brings me to training. People look at the cost of training for, say, Tactical Response, and typically it's $550 for 2 days, and you got to buy the ammo. So the first thing that someone looks at is, I'm going to spend $1,000 on 2 days to learn to shoot. The problem with that train of thought is, how much money can that save you? I mean, the flaw in the train of thought, the average train of thought when it comes to training, is they don't consider how much money they'll save. First off, you're going to learn a lot about your firearm selection. The gun industry thrives on choices, and manufacturers are all looking to fill a unique niche and offer unique choices to buyers to make money. But when you romanticize, as they want you to, these unique choices and think that you're going to use them in an emergency, and then you take them to one of these classes, you'll quickly realize this just doesn't work. This is not a good idea. And for one, you will save money after taking a tactical response class by not making foolish firearms decisions after the class. It will help you have an actual understanding on what you need to buy, why you need to buy it, and what is important and what is a gimmick. That could save you $1,000 right there, easy. Next, obviously, you need to consider what your life is worth. You could find yourself in a point, if you're watching this channel as a prepper, where you need to know how to shoot. Is $1,000 a lot of money for knowing what to practice in the future and how to become a more proficient shooter? If your life's not worth $1,000, then, what are you doing? But the third point that I'm going to make, the most important point, what is it worth to be able to train the people that you care about afterwards? So a lot of people go to tactical response, they go to these classes, and they try to steal the curriculum to teach other people for profit. And, you could say that nothing in this world is new, and to some degree you'd be right. And, to some degree it is what it is, but that's certainly shady and rude. And if you're paying for tactical response curriculum and you're not at tactical response, you're probably wasting your money, because your money would be better spent where that curriculum originated. But what you should be considering is a military training mentality. And what I mean by that is not what people think of when they think of military training. What I mean by that is how the military actually trains. They want to send a certain number of their soldiers to air assault school, airborne school, ranger school, designated marksman, etc., 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 because if you have a few people from each of these schools in your platoon, in your group of soldiers, they can teach their peers what they learned, and the entire group of soldiers is brought up for it, not just the one. So when you go to tactical response, let's say you have $1,000 set aside for it, by not only learning how to fight with a gun yourself, but teaching your peers and the people you rely on the most, that's invaluable. That's, first off, you're going to get mindset while you're there, but the whole thing is invaluable. And that's the deal, Old Iron, is if a person can actually learn what is taught in training, they can help out and to an extent train their significant other. Typically, you go to tactical response and you get a written curriculum that reminds you of what you went over in the class. And what I'll say about that is, in the military, your training is very much different than in the private sector, because it is soldiers who have to be there training soldiers, and soldiers being trained who have to be there. But everybody just wants to get off of work and go have some beers afterwards. And they want to do the minimum amount, they put forth the minimum amount of effort to get to that point, and they're just there because they're getting paid. There's an entirely different mentality for the trainer when they're being paid by you to train you, and if you're not satisfied, they don't make money. And as a trainee, when you are paying to get training, you expect to get as much training as you can for the money, and you're going to pay attention because you paid to be there. And it's just the difference between capitalism and socialism. And you get more for your money with capitalism every single time. And so being able to pass on what you learned because you truly paid attention is invaluable, certainly invaluable. So with the political spectrum right now, what my viewers need to understand, by the way, everybody on all of my videos, this one and all of my others, go down to the video. When you see the thumbs up and the thumbs down, go ahead and leave me a thumbs down, whether you like the video or not. It helps my analytics. The more thumbs down I have, the more YouTube thinks I'm, I don't know, creating a discussion or something, and they bump my videos up. So go ahead and do that. But the political environment right now, the first thing that you need to understand is that the media and what the government puts out is not meant to be taken at face value. So if they're showing you all of these mass shootings and blaming guns, there's a certain number of the population that is going to blame guns and out of fear want to ban guns, and that's good for them. That's part of the agenda. But more importantly, there's something else that they want to attack, and you will see that in the backlash. So for instance, let's say that I'm the government telling you about a shooting. There was a mass shooting today at the Willy Wonka chocolate factory. The person who did the shooting was a white terrorist male, and he is a felon, and he does have a history of mental illness, or that information can be looked up. Well, what they've dropped there is, first off, they're fueling racism, and that's part of it, but everybody's attention is going to be drawn to the mental illness, and I'm here to tell you that there's a reason for that. Because not only does our government want to create mental illness through medication, that is part of their goal, but they want you to give the government the right to take anybody's guns who they deem to be mentally ill. Because as soon as everybody is okay with the government doing that, they can slap mental illness on whatever they like, or they cannot slap mental illness on whatever they like, because homosexuality at one point was considered to be a mental illness. Now, I talked to a few friends about this. I guarantee you, whenever there is a resistance to government, which is what the government doesn't want, it is veteran-backed. Clearly, it is, people are trained by people who know how to fight. Glad to have you, Jack. So the government is telling soldiers that they have PTSD, is encouraging them to have PTSD, and is explaining to them that they will pay them to say that they have PTSD. Are they doing it for their own good? No, they have an agenda. And if you look at, hey Malcolm, what's up, bud? Malcolm, I need to get the Hidden Woodsman boonie someday. That'd be rad. By the way, Malcolm Codir, the Hidden Woodsman, I have a Hidden Woodsman backpack video that I plan on having come up pretty soon, and I would have had a lot more if it were not for my ankle. But Malcolm's a good guy. I would highly encourage everybody watching to check out the Hidden Woodsman. So to use an example, we are constantly pushing that veterans suffer from PTSD and that people with PTSD are unstable and unreliable, violent. As an example, watch The Punisher on Netflix, especially the second season. It's an entire show based on veterans who have PTSD killing indiscriminately based on what they feel is right or what they want to do. And so it's easy through a lot of this series to cheer on the foundational principles that are put forth in this series. But when you think about a few of the plot twists and a few of the things that seem a little bit off that are thrown into there, you have a strong undercurrent of a political ideology and of social manipulation of the conversation here. And there's a reason for that. They want us to be afraid of people who are mentally ill to the point where the government can define who is mentally ill. And this is a problem because our Second Amendment exists so that we can change the government if it becomes too powerful. And if the government resists, we can physically remove that resistance to accomplish our goal. The government will do whatever it can to stop that from happening, and it wants to control, it wants to ensure that that can never happen. I appreciate it, Malcolm. So how are they going to do that? They're going to turn the population against each other. They're going to promote lawlessness. Government gains power through lawlessness. Not a powerful economy, not a smooth running country. Raw government power is gained through instability, exactly like terrorism's goals are achieved through instability. But the difference is the terrorist goal is to create instability that makes the people under the government lose faith in their government. The goal of a government pushing instability is to make the people fear each other and trust the government. So the difference between the government and a terrorist organization is only by a degree. The end goal is the same. So, Scott, you're right. They are doing a great job of it. The first thing that they have to do to put everybody against each other is create an entitled society, and ideally an easy society. And so when you talk about an armed rebellion, you're talking about people leaving their families, losing their bank accounts, becoming criminals in the eyes of the public because the media is controlled by the government and by the general people. And see, the reason that we're having a hard time in the Middle East is that the people support the terrorists, okay? And so they will hide them. If you set the people, the way that we work this war is if you get the people against the terrorists cannot exist. And so we are actually fighting a war of information and psyops. And I understand a lot of this from working with these psyops guys. And so our government's doing the same thing. The first thing that will happen if there was an armed rebellion is the government seizes your bank account, so you have no more money, takes your wife and children, and they start working the media to paint you as the bad guys. And all of a sudden, instead of a patriot who wants to defend individual liberty and the right to self-ownership, they will paint you as a right-wing extremist or something else, turn the public against you, and once the public is against you, the rebellion cannot exist, and there will be more people, yes, psychological warfare occurring every day and on a scriptural level as well. So there will be more people who will enlist to fight for their country, to be a hero for their country, than there will be people willing to fight for what's right and for liberty and for what the country is, especially here, for what the country is supposed to be. We have an idea that if you fight for the country to any degree that you are a hero. The problem is that every villain in every army that we've ever faced has been a group of people fighting for their country, supporting the exact same morals that we place as the foundation for what a hero is in our country. And the truth is that the last heroes that died for our freedom in America lost the war. They lost. They all died. And we all view them as villains now because the winner wrote the history, and we think that the war that they lost, which was over taxation and states' rights and individual liberty, well, we've been taught that that war was about slavery instead, which slavery was destroyed not by the Civil War, of course, being that 4 states of the North were still allowed to have slaves here in Kentucky until 1976. I forget what I was saying. What? Oh, capitalism. Slavery didn't make financial sense anymore. People are expensive. People are expensive. You've got, for every worker, you've got children, you've got grandparents, you're constantly dealing with people being sick. You have to feed them enough to get, it's a system that didn't make sense in a mechanized world. Capitalism killed slavery. The government took credit for it. They're good at that. So at the end of the day, as you're watching the news, so thank you. One of our viewers just stated, did you see where Amazon is going to use people's hand as a form of payment in wholesale food market? They're trying to do away with currency. They want more control. So we have been led to that point through credit cards and debit cards and through our electronic currency to accept that type of economy. And all of that has to happen to make people accustomed to that way of life before you can have the Antichrist show himself and create a 7-year tribulation through the mark of the beast. When you're right, Modest Bear, when people are no longer used to spending money and actually having something in hand of value to trade or whatever, that's going to be a really easy transition. And when to buy or sell something, you have to have that mark, everyone will get that mark. All of the people who say that they're Christians today, as it becomes less and less popular, they fall away. And then the moment that we have this transition from the regular economy and pseudo-Christian nation and pseudo-Christian morals that everything's supposedly based on now, the second that you have to give up every part of Christianity to have a modern world, you're going to see 99.8% at least of the church disappear overnight. Nobody's going to be a Christian anymore. They can take the Christian morals, what they believe are Christian morals, which aren't even Christian morals, they are worldly morals based on social norms. They will take those, they'll call them something else, and they'll be done with it, and they'll continue living their lives like normal. The only people who will not continue living their lives like normal will be people who do not take the mark, who will no longer be able to own property, to pay for housing, to buy food, to buy anything, to sell anything. Their entire lives will be run through the black market or completely off the grid. And so that's what we're preparing for. That's what we're being set up for. And to reach that goal, we have to make the world that we live in really easy and really comfortable so that nobody wants to give up the luxury that they've become accustomed to. And so part of that luxury today is cheap ARs. So definitely jump on that while you can. Possibly even for some cache stuff. All right, guys. So Can't remember if I had anything else planned. I'm sure there's another mass shooting that will happen tomorrow, allegedly. And the same points will be driven home. Logic will not prevail. And so for the people who take what we're given at face value, I would ask you to look deeper into the news story and look deeper at the conversation that people are having, because when one side is saying we need to ban guns and the other side is saying we need to take a closer look at mental health, this is supposed to be the good side. And it makes sense. The problem is you will never have the ideal system to check for mental health. And just like every other government program, from Social Security to anything else, it will be abused. And we are being given this discussion. The government is making us think that it is our idea so that we'll support it, and it leads to red flag laws. And we have a vast majority of people who believe that they are liberty-minded, believe that they are patriotic, and believe that they support individual liberty, but who support red flag laws without due process. Unquestionably support it. And it doesn't make any sense, but it's because we have been programmed to go along with the narrative. It's all about preserving the narrative. And when nothing makes sense to someone who sits down and thinks about what's going on, it's because all of the strings are being pulled and nothing is about pro-America or pro-one country or pro the other country. Everything is being set up for the beast. Modest Bear said a major problem is pornography. And I agree, certainly, because when we accepted the sexual norms of yesterday, we supported the sexual norms of today. And so, but it's not just that, though. That is, that is a side effect of the core problem. And the core problem is the moral relativity that we live in and the comfort in which we can enjoy it. And so it's not just the pornography, it's the professional sports. Why does the NFL get taxpayer dollars? Think about it. Yeah, and as Old Iron just mentioned, the most recent Texas shooter is supposedly mentally ill and I believe had 2 felonies, so couldn't own a firearm legally, so bought the firearm through private sales. They've called it the gun show loophole. They've called it all kinds of things, all kinds of loopholes. The reality, I'm going to do a video on this. The reality is that FFLs and gun shops are a loophole in the Second Amendment. We've allowed ourselves to be background checked and to register our firearms when we purchase them new, knowing that we can still buy firearms in private sales without government regulation because it is our right. And so, but again, we were sold a bill of goods on that whole process. It's all unconstitutional. The FFL process, the background checks, all of it is unconstitutional. And people aren't looking at it that way because they've bought into the narrative. Even though they think that they're on the right side of the argument, they are still government owned. At the end of the day, if you want to, keeping the masses tamed with Coliseum games, that's exactly it. At the end of the day, all of this comes down to 2 things at face value if you're simply a patriot and not a Christian, and 2 things if you're a Christian. So on this side, at face value, do you own yourself or does the government own you? And if you have to ask yourself what you believe, Can you do what you want without government intervention? If the answer is no, you cannot legally do what you want without government intervention. The government owns you if you're okay with that. And if you're okay with the government running what somebody else does outside of prison, then you're okay with the government owning you. Or you may not, you may want liberty for yourself. Everybody wants liberty for themselves, but not their neighbor. Well, if you don't believe that your neighbor has liberty, then you believe in government ownership, and you are government owned as well. And then on the flip side, you have Christ owned and Antichrist. And Christ owned obviously directly correlates to self owned, but it's a deeper look into how it works. X-Country Adventures, how are you doing, bud? Good to have you on the show. Is there anything that you guys would like me to go deeper into or to discuss either on this topic or any other topic before we call it a night? I'd love to talk about what you guys think about the direction with the channel. Do you like seeing the firearms videos, and would you like to see more of those? Are you here for knife videos? Are you here for prepping content? Would you like to see more? I'm going to do more tactics. What do you come and subscribe to this channel for? And is it, I don't know. I don't think I've ever done 5 firearms videos in a row. It feels good. I always thought I'd do way more than that, but I'm glad to hear it, Modest Bear. Thanks, Jack. Anything else, guys? Future, I've done some videos on ambushes. I'm going to talk a little bit more about R&R in the future. R&R is recon and resistance, because I believe that those are the 2 things that will directly affect any kind of prepper in any kind of armed conflict. And so I don't do bug out bags, I do R&R bags, stuff like that. We're going to get back into that really deep, and tactics, clover leafing, ambushes. I've got a little bit into that in the past. We're going to get more into it. If you guys have specific requests, absolutely ask for them. On Patreon especially, you guys can ask me for whatever you want, and if it's within my power, I will do it. So feel free to do that. Anything else in the current events, politics? Anybody want to talk about Crenshaw, AOC? Hit me up. What is it that you guys, is there anything that you guys want to discuss? I will say I'm a little bit bummed with this boonie. It was off of Amazon. It's clearly BDU or woodland pattern, but when you look closer at it, yeah, it's just not, it's not legit. I was hoping it'd be a little bit legitter. But man, it's gonna be hot this week, mid 90s here, and I can't wait for it to get cool. X-Country, bugging out would be an interesting discussion. We can talk about bugging out now. I can do a full live bug out video. I've done quite a few bugging out videos, but it's probably something that I will get back into. It's always an interesting topic, but the concept of bugging out has been taken too broadly. And so it's a fairly specific thing, because when you bug out, no problem, man. I'm glad that you asked. Bugging out should entail moving quickly for 2 to 3 days to a new location, or moving out and moving back to the original location. And it's been kind of changed over to kind of an inch bag in case I never come home, which is kind of a fantasy deal, and all kinds of other things. And people have taken bugging out to degrees that are unnecessary. So I'll do a little bit about that, but of course from an R&R perspective for recon and resistance for a civilian Patriot. Head Crab asks, based on my military experience, how useful and necessary is full auto? Okay, so there's 2 ways to answer this question. One is as a Patriot militiaman and rights, and full auto is absolutely 100% necessary for private ownership, for the individual citizen, for the organized militia, for counter government measures. Now, in today's society, how necessary is full auto? It's not. We don't even use full auto for anything but suppression through crew-served weapons in the military. It's kind of a waste of ammo. And so people need to train to make their shots count, especially as an individual patriot. Modest Bear feels that bugging out is never a viable option if you have a big extended family around where you live. Man, it's hard, and hopefully a big extended family is all on the same page, but as a Christian, if you have a big extended family, you have to understand scripturally that even within your extended family, you will have people turning you in and stabbing you in the back. At which point, realistically, when we get into a hard spot, bugging out actually I would say would be the most viable option, only taking your direct family and possibly the most trusted people in your family and leaving everybody else behind and not telling anybody where you're going, because brother's going to turn on brother and father's going to turn against son, and etc. So there you go. It just depends. Time of year and seasons affect bugging out gear, prep, weight, distance covered. So it is going to depend on where you live, but in the winter, you're just going to be carrying more weight. It doesn't matter where you live. You could be in Death Valley, but if you're not carrying extra snivel gear in the winter, you're going to freeze at night. Although it might be heavier in Death Valley to carry all the water in the summer, because you'd need to carry as much water as you could possibly carry. You almost wouldn't need anything else, like a little bag of beef jerky and 6 gallons of water. I don't know. But you know, that's one thing though. If you're going to keep a bug out bag or an R&R bag packed and ready to go, it needs to evolve with the season, and it needs to be a fluid and dynamic pack that is filled with the best gear that you can afford, gear that you've trained with, and that is ready for your current environment and situation. And it could also be changed for whatever emergency you could possibly face. So Modest Bear says the 3-shot burst is the most accurate, and I would certainly disagree with that. We don't even use 3-shot burst really in the military. It's not accurate. It really isn't. It still jumps around a lot, even with the little baby 5.56. And so you can shoot fast enough just with your finger to basically make it unnecessary. And there might be a time, if you're trained for it, for 3-round burst in a CQB situation, but we still didn't do it. You know, there's a time where more is better, but for the individual citizen, it's really not. Yeah, I mean, in the Army, we just private will throw his AR into 3-round burst for giggles and to say that he's done it, and then you'll get yelled at. I mean, we don't hardly do anything ever with 3-round burst. Just it is what it is. The only things that shoot more that are full auto is going to be your SAW and your 240, essentially, as a light infantry unit. And your SAW and your 240 are really only viable when you have a military, when you have, when you have a group of people. Because if you've got 4 or 5 dudes, you're not carrying a lot of ammo. You don't have resupply. You can't afford to just sit there and lay down 500 or 600 rounds in a firefight. You can't do it. You won't, unless, I mean, you could if you had to with an AR in semi-auto, but you couldn't do it repeatedly. You're not going to have enough ammo. You can't carry enough ammo. You can't have enough resupply to make it make sense. So, even if you've got 20 people, even if you got to understand, if you have 20 fighters, then you have a home group of 100 or 150, most likely, at least 60. So you've got a lot of baggage, and 20 fighters is nothing. 20 fighters is something that if the government cares, they'll wipe out with the push of a button from somewhere across the country. Look at Waco. They had 20 fighters, and they got burnt to death, and the people who came out with their hands up got murdered. X-Country Adventures said the more you have, the more people want to take. I absolutely agree. And you can only carry so much. So at some point, caches have to be something that you consider. And caches are probably what our government is most terrified of. And caches are something that are probably easier to set up now than they ever will be because of the prices of ammo, ARs, and accessories. One thing I want to mention about ARs, my belt's a little bit far away, but if you have an AR and mags and you plan on having the capacity to use it in an emergency, you better have a kit for carrying mags too. And you better think about how you're going to have that all set up. And the only way to know that you've got it set up right is to put it on and wear it and go walk. Go spend 3 or 4 days with it. Find a way to do it. Go to a national park. You can carry firearms in a national park now. Throw on your AR, throw on your kit, throw on a bag, get some buddies together and go on a walk. And the rangers are going to come bother you. So know the law beforehand and be like, look, dude, I know, not meant to hurt anybody. Is that thing loaded? Yeah, it's loaded. I don't carry a freaking unloaded gun. All right, this isn't a joke. But there's nothing you can freaking do about it, so stop bothering me. Moss Bear asked if I ever fired a SCAR. No, but here's the deal. For the citizen, what's the point? You lose your parts compatibility. Is it really lighter weight? I doubt it. I think it's actually heavier. Is it more reliable? Not to any degree that's going to matter. And if it is more reliable but a part breaks, is it going to be as easy to fix? No. Is it going to be as easy to find parts for? No. Are manufacturers as good at making the SCAR as they are ARs? No. Manufacturers are freaking awesome at making AR parts right now. So I've just been looking at 308s. 308's a freaking awesome option. I run a DPMS G2, and that has been my go-to fighting rifle for a while. I invested hugely into it. It is a much more expensive route to take. Ammo is much more expensive, and at the end of the day, it is more difficult to shoot, and I'm not going to be taking training classes with it because it's hard for me to buy that doggone ammo. I don't make a lot of money. On the flip side, I'm going to be training with 5.56, and it's much easier to shoot with 223. It's much more affordable. It's much more easy to shoot proficiently, and I'm coming to a change in the way I look at things, where 223 might be this, or 556 might be the superior option if you can train with it more, shoot it better, it's lighter weight, it's cheaper, and instead of having one main go-to, it might be a good idea to have 3 or 4 of the same firearm and AR, and have a cache, have one in the truck, have one in the house. And with that being said, you keep your 308 as a designated marksman setup. You might need it, and if it's an AR, a lot of this training that you got with your 556 is going to translate well. So it's a winner-winner chicken dinner. So he mentioned he just built a new match, Bushmaster, and wants to step up to a bigger round for big game hunting. The thing is, you step up to a 308 AR, you can big game hunt, you can CQB shoot, you can long range shoot, you can do anything, but you're going to be carrying more weight, and it's going to be a little bit harder to do, but you have more effect at a longer range, and range equals life. Range and distance is survivability. And that's what I don't understand about a lot of AR builds. People put everything in the moon on their AR and they make it weigh 10 plus pounds. But look at this bullet. Look at this little tiny thing. That isn't worth carrying all of that weight for. The purpose of this is to be light and fast, rapidly deployable, easy to hit stuff with, easy to throw up, easy to carry for a long ways, easy to carry a lot of ammo. When you make the gun heavy, you might as well just go to 308 anyways. Are the AR-10s reliable? It depends, man. My DPMS G2, I'm a huge fan of. There are a lot of ARs that are simply phenomenal, and I think design-wise and engineering-wise, I think the DPMS G2 platform is the finest of all of them. And they are very reliable. But there's a million companies that make them. There's a million different standards. It's not standardized like the AR-15 is. And so there are certainly a lot of duds out there. And if you're building one, there's a lot more that you have to know to make it work and to make it reliable. An AR-15 is easy mode. AR-308 is big boy mode. You're going to want to do your research. If you're interested in an AR-10 or AR-308, go to 308.com/forum. You want to go to the 308 AR forum. It is the best place for people and information, and those guys know their crap about 308s, and they will help you. They're great. You know, he said he's got nothing but iron sights and a red dot on one. You know, there you go. Iron sights and a red dot. I'm on board, bud. Light and fast at close to medium range. That's what it's for. And being able to carry it a long distance with a lot of ammo. Ray Camp, or RA Camp, good to have you, bud. We've covered quite a bit of ground. If you've got any questions about what we are here for or what's going on, let me know, and we'll do it to it here. So we can talk about knives, we can talk about guns, we can talk about politics or current events. It don't matter. All right, suggestions for storage of weapons in vehicles. So I'm assuming that you mean rapid deployment weapons that you're going to take in with you every night. And whether, I'm not sure if you mean a pistol or a rifle. A rifle's more difficult. I'm going to have a pistol on my person, whether I'm in the vehicle or out of the vehicle at all times, always. Because of that, I can afford, if I'm going to have a rifle, to hide it somewhere, to stow it away, because I'm not worried in my current life about having to grab a rifle and fight with it immediately. And if I was, it would be difficult to do anyways. Fighting from a vehicle is very difficult. I took vehicle defense with John Farnham, DTI, and I have to thank James Yeager for that. He made that possible. It was an incredible experience. And Shooting out of a vehicle is a bad idea because the entire vehicle is a bullet magnet. So either if you're in a vehicle, you need to get out of Dodge, or you need to get to an advantageous position and get the crap out of your vehicle and away from it. You don't want to stick around it and fight around it because you're just going to get yourself dead. It's just a bad spot, and that's why ambushes are so effective. So basically, you should have a pistol on you any time that you're wearing clothes. If you have clothes on, you should have a sidearm. And that allows you to stow away a long gun somewhere that is not instantly accessible. Well, guys, I got to get going. Benjamin has awakened. So my live video time is over. Feel free to comment on here or to visit my Facebook public figure page, Jacob Beach Peterson, to ask me questions or to give me ideas for the next live video. I am always up for suggestions. Also, make sure to check out my Patreon. We have patrons here tonight. You guys make the channel possible, and patrons have a direct line to what goes on the channel. If a patron wants something and I can make it happen, I will make it happen. So, with that being said, thank you all. God bless. Have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you soon.